Well, hello again, everybody, and welcome to The Experience Maker. My name is Dan Gingiss, customer experience speaker, author, podcaster, and coach. I'm so happy to have you here for another terrific episode. Hey, the countdown has been on for a while, and we are now less than a week away from the launch of The Experience Maker, how to create remarkable experiences that your customers can't wait to share. It is available everywhere: Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Target, Walmart, and I've even heard of some people already receiving their copies ahead of time. Shame on you, bookstores, for sending them out ahead of time, but that's okay because it gets the book in people's hands even earlier. So please check it out. And if you go to theexperiencemakerbook.com and enter in your order number, you get 3 amazing free bonuses just for pre-ordering the book. So go there, check it out, and thank you so much for your support. Also, since I am all about customer feedback, let me know what you think of it. I would love to hear your thoughts on the book, and I'll certainly get back to you. I want to introduce you to today's guest. Rich Dorfman is the Vice President of Customer Experience at Eastern Bank. So we're going to talk a little financial services today. How you doing, Rich?
Doing well, thank you, and appreciate. I got an advanced copy of your book, and I'll give you a little plug for that. It's a must-read for anybody interested in practicing in customer experience. So go get it.
Well, thank you, appreciate it, Rich. And I, as you know, spent a long time in financial services, so it's one of those industries that both has come a long way and still has a long way to go, I think. So tell me a little bit about you and Eastern Bank and what you do.
Sure. Thank you for that. Next month will be 13 years that I'm at the bank. I actually was a consultant to my current employer before I was an employee. I had my own consulting company in financial services for about 7 years. So I had a chance to peek into a lot of the community banks that were my clients and said, you know what, if it came around to opportunity to work somewhere again as an employee, Eastern would be the place. Just great folks, wonderful management, really customer-oriented organization. And said, you know what, when the financial services crisis hit a dozen years ago or so, that was the right opportunity for me. So when I got there, I came into the marketing department with a title that was very new to the bank. It was called Customer Intelligence, of all things. And my first question to my hiring manager was, what the heck is that? I said, well, it's a new role. Management wanted to create an opportunity for someone like you with a skill set to help our business line leaders make better, smarter, more intelligent, quicker decisions to augment their experience. I said, okay, that sounds good. I can help them do that. And part of my onboarding process, as I have done in other client engagements, was to talk to my colleagues and understand where they were coming from, what they needed, what was keeping them awake at night. And I learned a lot of things in that first month or two that brought me to where I am now. First of all, I've been in banking for 30 years, so it was no surprise to me, Dan, that we were drowning in data, customer operational data. How much, how many, how long? They can cite stacks of data around that. What they didn't have when I asked the question, said, what do your customers want? What do they think? Why do they bank with you? Why do they not put all of their funds with you? I was getting a lot of blank stares. And that opened up the door to me to understanding that we had no experiential data, what customers were believing. There was no place that we were having a repository of that keen, important insight. And that really opened my eyes to the fact that, wow, we have a blank void here in terms of making intelligent decisions. You can't just make a decision based on only that which you know about the operational understanding of the client's needs. You have to understand what their motivations are, what their attitudes are, what their preferences are, and have that in a disciplined way. And that opened my eyes up to the customer experience realm, and which I then brought to the organization. And today, we are now running VOC programs across all of our 15 lines of business so that our business line leaders not only know what the operational underpinnings are, they understand what motivates their clients to do what they do or not do what they don't want to do. And we bring that bridge together, and it's still, like you said, a work in progress, but we are fundamentally more advanced in our understanding and more client-centric than we've ever been before. And it is absolutely helping us make better, smarter, faster decisions with the customer in mind to help co-create value with them, not in a vacuum. So that's sort of the long story that got me to where I am here, and why I'm with you today.
Well, I love that. I love the concept of co-creating value. I love that you started off in the marketing department. I'm a marketer at heart as well, spent almost 20 years in marketing. So, and I like to say today that I live at probably the same intersection you do, which is at the intersection of customer experience and marketing, which of course are becoming closer and closer every day. Tell me something that may have surprised you or the team over the years that, you know, once you started listening and you started building this VOC, obviously when we ask customers for feedback, we get it. But what was something maybe that you guys didn't expect, but then you were able to act on?
Well, it's a work in progress still. What surprised me then and still surprises me now, that even though we are good at customer service and always have been, it is not the same understanding across the board as customer experience. You can have a great smile, and we do. We can be very empathetic, which we are. But the discipline of customer experience takes into account a lot more of that. And not everyone still gets that, right? You have to look at the things that customers do, even when you don't have a smile in front of you. The things that they see in your ads, or when they're self-servicing on their online and mobile banking apps. It's an entire set of touch points that I'm trying to create that understanding around across our organization, that it's the entirety of one's interactions with the brand that matter. The small things, not just the big things, not just the in-person things or the voice-to-voice things in our call center. And I think that is still a reckoning that we have to do. And our management, our senior leaders have to get the fact, and are getting the fact now, that as customers themselves of other brands, they know when things are working, when things are not working. And we have to understand that there's a constant continuity of this feedback that allows us to make course corrections along the way, and to keep those listening posts activated in a way that customers want to engage with you, not just in the way you prefer to engage with them. It's a battle internally as much as it is organization, because we're competing for resources, right? Sure. You know, it takes time and effort and money for alignment around this. And those of you who are listening in the CX profession know that we are as much change agents as anything else in our job description. And that is one of the hardest things to do in an organization, especially when there's so many competing resources for attention and funds and, you know, focus.
Yeah, I keep thinking of the phrase "death by 1,000 paper cuts" as you were describing that oftentimes when we lose a customer, it's not because of a single incident. It's because forever we have just stood in their way and poked at them and been annoying and frustrated them. And at some point they have enough. I love to suggest to people in really any industry to go through your forgotten password process. It's probably one of the most frustrating processes to go through as a customer, no matter where you're at, a retailer, a bank, whatever it is. Go through your process and then tell me that it can't be improved, because of course it can. The process is almost built on purpose for security reasons to be complex and difficult and annoying. But it doesn't mean that there aren't ways where you can keep the security and still make the process easier for people. And so there's all sorts of those things. And I've had plenty of occasions where I can't remember my password, the forgotten password, I get stuck, and then I give up. I'm done. I'm like, I don't want to be a customer anymore. I've got better things to do than to go try to reset my password at some company that I didn't really care that much about in the first place.
Dan, in your example, I'm actually feeling your emotion, right? So and that is very key to this whole thing. You know, when customers are frustrated to get the job done that they want to get done and they can't do it, it's not just the fact that they can't get it done, it's an emotional experience. And we need to be sensitive to that as CX practitioners to understand that, you know, you want to be a human in this process, not just getting something done, and to lower the temperature, understand the issue, and of course to fix it and to communicate that fix. But to your point, you need to understand the millions of little things that make up a good experience. Any one of those things that could go off the rails could derail what could otherwise be a great experience. And sometimes when something does go wrong and you fix it and communicate it, that actually elevates the loyalty of that customer, as if perhaps if nothing went wrong, maybe it would be okay. But
for sure,
the organization that does the right thing in understanding, synthesizing, fixing, and communicating the things that do go wrong, that's a sign of a mature CX organization that puts the customers at the center of their activity.
Yeah, I completely agree. And, one of the things that I used to teach my team, both at Discover in the financial services world and at Humana in healthcare. And look, it's difficult to hear this sometimes, but I'm willing to be blunt when it matters. I would say, look, nobody wakes up in the morning wanting to come to their credit card website. That is not a goal of anybody's. They're there because they have a task to accomplish. Do they want to accomplish that task quickly or slowly? They want to accomplish it quickly. Okay, so why are we standing in the way and making it difficult for them to log in and then throwing pop-up messages at them and cross-sells and upsells and making them click 3 or 4 times to get to the place that they wanted to go? Why are we doing all that? If we know they don't want to be here in the first place and all they want to do is just get done and leave, let's build the experience that way. And to Discover's credit, that's one of the things we did in a particular part of the experience where we made it so that people could just log in, see what they were looking for, and log out without clicking on anything. And the satisfaction scores went through the roof because people were like, you get me, you understand. I just wanted to do this one little thing. And I wanted to be in and out so I can go on with the rest of my day. And folks, unless you work at Starbucks or Disney or some company that people really do want to spend time engaging with and more time engaging with, you got to get that communicated internally that our job is to help customers accomplish their task quickly, and that's going to make them happy and satisfied with us.
And yet there's a corollary to that, Dan, because sometimes things do go wrong, or the issue is not easily solved in a self-service way, as you know. A fraud situation, that is a difficult thing to self-serve. So that's when you pick up the phone or you do a chat with somebody. And that's when the emotions really get a little bit higher and there's more at stake, because if anything, that's a moment of truth. And if your emotions are at the peak, because there's a fraud situation at stake here, and your finances can be at risk. So that's when the human experience really is paramount. And not only do you need the empathy, you need the skill set to not only get the thing done. It needs to be done in a way that the agent and the customer can have clarity in that communication. They get the issue resolved as quickly and as efficiently as possible, but in a way that is a human-to-human experience. And I think when that happens, look, in financial services, everything is moving to digital. Everyone wants to do things in a self-service, fast way. Sure, why not? But we know too that banks like ours really are highly dependent on traffic into the branches for certain reasons, or the calls to the call center. So we need to have all of our engagement activities optimized. And especially when that issue does rise to a person-to-person resolution, we need to make sure that is a well-trained, understanding, customer-focused individual who can solve that customer's issue quickly, empathetically, and in a way that wants that customer to come back. That's where the loyalty factor really comes into play.
For sure. I mean, we look to companies at those moments of truth when the chips are down, when there's been fraud on our account, when it's time to file a claim with the insurance company. That's when the rubber hits the road, right? The salesperson was great, happy to pay my fee every month, but when I really need you is when I have a claim. And then it's really, let's see how what you guys can do. I think we learned this in spades over the last year and a half with COVID, that customers looked to companies that were there for them when they needed them. And we needed a lot of the companies that we did business with in different ways than we needed them before. And it was very apparent, at least in my experience, which companies were there and which companies were just phoning it in or completely lost. Right?
You were reading my mind with that. I was just thinking about this past 18 months as you were moving into that conversation. And Eastern Bank, like everyone else, just had to make adjustments on the fly. We had to figure out these PPP loans like literally in 24 hours with very little direction from the Small Business Association. And our small community bank did more PPP loans than some of the largest banks in our area because we just focused on it. We understood. We even created shortcuts with our Eastern Labs group to create a more manageable, facile way to get those loans in and approved. And we had our relationship managers do outbound calls to all of our business and commercial customers just to see how they were doing. There was Herculean effort being done by our technology teams, as well as our relationship managers, to try to keep, the lights on with our companies and with our consumers too, who were, fretting around fees, overdraft and whatever. And we were eliminating fees for a very long period of time to just try to console and understand and keep these customers from, just going off the rails in terms of their financial stress. It was an incredibly challenging time. And that also pertained to the employees who were also required to move off-site if they weren't in a branch or doing, critical on-premises work with the technology. So it actually opened our eyes for focus more on internal employee experience in addition to the external customer experience. Transformative time, as you probably know, both inside and outside the organization. I actually think it's accelerated our CX maturity as a result of all of this challenge.
Well, and it sounds like, if I were a betting man, that all these people that you helped get the PPP loan more quickly or that you waived fees for, these are the people that are going to continue to be loyal to Eastern Bank because you were there for them when they needed you. And that's what drives loyalty. And sometimes it's about, and the best company in the world at this is Amazon. It's about understanding that you might lose money on a single transaction, right? You had a fee that you could have collected and now you didn't. And so therefore, revenue is down. But when you compare that to the lifetime value of a customer that's now going to stay with you another 20 years because you were there for them when they needed you most, it's a no-brainer to do that. And that's why Amazon makes it so easy to return products. Sometimes you don't even have to send it back to them and they just give you the refund and say, keep the product, because they know that you're going to stay loyal to them and it's okay if they lose money on a single transaction. I think if more companies understood that, they would be able to apply the CX principles more effectively because they'd have the freedom to be able to make the right decision for the customer, even if in that one particular instance, it doesn't make the company the most amount of money. It's the long-term play. And basically at the end of the day, company ends up just fine because you guys built a whole lot of loyalty during that last 18 months, even if it was a tough financial year and a half.
Well, it was a tough year, but and year and a half. But the proof is in the pudding. Our NPS and overall satisfaction scores are now at peak levels. Now that there's some stability in the minds and souls of our customers, so we're tracking this, and it's lovely to see. And our CFO is reporting now we're on track for record earnings because our customers are rewarding us with their loyalty by doing more business with us, recommending more. It really is incredible to see. And what it's also done, it's made our whole organization even more focused on the value of customer centricity and the customer experience. It takes a village to create a happy customer. Truly, it does. But it also takes a village to align around this, because customer experience, as you know, is still a relatively young discipline. When I started this in my role, 2008, CX was barely a thing. The CXPA wasn't even an organization yet.
Yeah.
Right. And now, being a customer centricity is one of the CEO's top 3 initiatives in the majority of companies around the world these days. So it's important, but yet it is an evolving discipline that requires constant care and attention, because customer expectations are always evolving and always going higher. And they're not just looking at your peers within the industry that you're competing in. You mentioned Amazon. Our customers are Amazon customers too. And if they're getting a great experience there, they're expecting it from their bank as well. So we have to look at the best of breed everywhere in order to bring those best practices into how we run our shop.
Man, Rich, I don't think you need me here in this interview. I think I just got to let you keep going, because, man, are you dropping some awesome knowledge bombs here. And look, what I love about this is that you work for a bank, right? And when you think about it again from the consumer perspective, who loves their bank, right? It's not a lovable industry. Healthcare, same thing. I've worked at companies like this, right? So I say that with some knowledge. You're not Starbucks, you're not Amazon, you're not Disney. And yet everything that you're saying, from the CEO having customer centricity in his goals, to having it require a village to create customer experience, and to really, it's got to be a cultural thing in the organization, to being willing to forego a fee here or there in order to help the customer at a time of need. These are all the things that every company in every industry should be doing. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. And you also mentioned customer expectations, which is totally right. If you spend all of your time looking at other banks for inspiration, you are not going to be very inspired. You're going to find your inspiration from the companies that are doing amazing things. And, we did a segment on our podcast, Experience This, where we talked about Universal Studios and how much they spent to make waiting in line an experience. Because obviously you go to these rides and sometimes it's a 45-minute, hour-long ride or wait in line. And they realized they had to do something to make that wait more interesting. And anybody that's been to Harry Potter World in Florida knows that, there's people that literally wait in the line and don't go on the ride because the line is so cool, because you get the tour of the castle and all that sort of thing. So what does that mean for a bank or for whatever industry you're in? When are you making your customers wait? Are you making them wait on hold? Are you making them wait? My favorite in the banking industry is that it's when you have to wait for a letter to come in the mail, because we can't give you a decision online. We have to send you a letter that you'll get in 5 to 7 business days. These are moments that are the same as waiting in line at an amusement park. And you can actually learn some things from Universal Studios to apply to the part of your business where you're asking customers to wait. So this is one of the reasons, this is the reason why Rich, I was so excited to have you on the show, is that I feel like there are so few in financial services that really get this and that are pushing forward as much as you guys are to really change the perception of what it's like to be a banking customer. And I think that's awesome.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. And I love this conversation too. Yeah, I know we only have a little bit of time, but this pushes my buttons when we talk about this stuff, because, you feel good about doing what you're doing. And maybe I was meant to do this throughout my career, but it just was a matter of self-discovery to get into the profession of being customer cheerleader, if you will, to get your organization aligned around this. And, it is about evolving your relationship with your customers, because things never stay the same. COVID has taught us that in spades. And we want to make sure that we are always connected to them. Again, when I started 13 years ago at this point, we were having tenuous connections. Maybe a handful of the relationship managers knew what was going on, but we know we didn't have the interconnectivity of customer feedback and communication. Now we've created an entire new vocabulary, if you will, of promoters and detractors, and what customers want and don't want, and what their pain points are. We've created an entire new ecosystem of data and insight that is now operationally running through the veins of our company, and it's part of our DNA now. So I think we can't rest on laurels. No one ever can, right? But I think, hard work in this space really pays off if you stay dedicated to it.
Yeah, I love it. Quickly, because we only have a minute or so left, you asked me to remind you about Kimpton Hotels, which I know was provided an inspiration for you. Tell us quickly about that story.
Yeah, talk about getting inspiration from other industries in the hospitality space. Years ago, when my wife and I were celebrating a special anniversary, and we were going out to Sedona, Arizona, a magical place in and of itself. On a recommendation from a family member, we said, okay, let's make a reservation at the Kimpton Hotel. So we did, told them the dates. They asked me, are you here for a special occasion? I said, yeah, it's my wife and I's special anniversary, and we're very much looking forward to it. So we drive into the parking lot after a long day of travel. We get there. It's probably 6 or 8 hours into our day. We're tired. We pull into the parking lot. A valet comes out, welcomes us, asks our name, the Dorfmans, and they get our bags. They said, we'll bring them into the lobby and we'll check you in. In the minute or so from that greeting, which was very warm and friendly, to the time we walked to the front desk, folks were welcoming us by name, Mr. and Mrs. Dorfman. Somehow they knew exactly what was transitioning from the parking lot valet to the front desk. They said, we have your room already. There'll be a little welcoming gift there for you. And sure enough, when we get in there was a bottle of champagne, chocolate-covered strawberries with a little notes and happy anniversary, Mr. and Mrs. Dorfman. I mean, they just blew us away with not just the niceties of all of this, but how interconnected all of the pieces of the touch points of that experience were. And that was just the example of the entire stay, just in that first 3 minutes of the arrival. And I've told this story, I don't know, couple hundred times at this point, because to your book, they made an experience. They created a memorable experience. Yeah, it's a hotel. It's not a bank. So maybe they're starting at a higher place than, balancing your checkbook. But nonetheless, they created an experience that made you feel like you don't want to ever go anywhere else. And I'll never forget how they did that. It takes a lot of work to do that, but they figured it out.
I love it. Great example. We got to get the Kimpton folks on this show. And just so you know, my dad has never used an ATM because he still likes walking into the bank where they say, good morning, Mr. Gingiss to him. So I get it. And, people appreciate the personal aspect. Rich, it's been so much fun having you here. I feel like we could talk for hours, but thank you for bringing your wisdom to the show. And thank you for what you're doing at Eastern Bank. You guys have some lucky customers. So keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you, Dan. Have a great one.
All right. And thank you, as always, for being here on the Experience Maker Show. I really appreciate it. I'm going to tell you one more time that by the time the next episode of this show airs, The Experience Maker, the book, is going to be on bookshelves and available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and anywhere that you find your books. So please check it out and then let me know what you think of it. You can also go to theexperiencemakerbook.com where you can find free bonuses just for placing an order. So hope that you enjoy the book. And again, definitely let me know what you think of it. Hey, next week, we are going to go overseas to Belgium as I welcome Christophe Jacquet to the show. Christophe works for a company that he, I think, founded called Healthusiasm. And it is trying to alter customer experience in healthcare. And man, if there's an industry more than financial services that needs it, it's healthcare. So Christophe is going to show us how. I do want to point out that we are going to be a day earlier next week, Wednesday the 15th, same time, but a different date next week. So we will see you then. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Dan Gingiss, and we'll see you next week on the Experience Maker Show.